County Board of Equalization hearing. All 5 board members are present, and there are 6 cases on the agenda. The first case, RPC 200120002, had a signed letter of reduction on the 6th, so that has come off the calendar. And then just to keep it simple, the third case on the agenda, RPC 340200269 at 2010 Crystal Drive, that also has signed a reduction as of the 6th. So that will come off the calendar this morning. So going to the second case on the agenda, RPC 140450008 at 901 North Randolph. Mr. Warren, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, board. Good morning to the county. And like I said, we'll be presenting this together, so I'm going to let Jeremy jump in here in a second, but I'll kind of lay out the basics of the points of interest of the case. I'm going to start on page 42 of 189, which is our summary of facts. This is the Randolph Towers Apartments. It's located at 901 North Randolph Street. It's comprised of a single tax RPC. It's currently assessed at $256,435,100. The county is recommending no change, and the value we're requesting from the board is $235,477,700. It's a high-rise apartment building. It was originally constructed in 1986, 21 stories high, total of 509 units, offering a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units with street level retail and office on the second floor. I will now move over to page 3, which is the county's mixed use income and expense summary. You'll see that the columns highlighted in blue are the actual reported INEs for the subject property dating back to 2021. The assessment value for this property, the 2025 assessment, represents an 11% increase from the prior year, while over that year-over-year timeframe, NOI increased just 4%. The 2 main things we wanted to point out here is one, and we've heard you've heard this from us before, is the county is overestimating their gross potential income. The county, if you look at their original column or their original assessment analysis in column D1 for the apartments, they were estimating a total gross potential income of $18,986,160, and then in their test column, after seeing the year-end 2024 apartment INE summary, which listed a gross potential income far less than the original gross potential income listed by the county, that actual GPI reported was $18,540,959. The county actually increased their gross potential income in their test column to $19,160,704. So around $600,000 above the actual gross potential this property was capable of generating. Again, what we've kind of shown here is the county, upon review of the year-end financials for stabilized properties, tend to, in their test column, overestimate the gross potential income for the apartments, so they could take that 5% vacancy rate and be in line with the actuals instead of getting the 5% for the actual gross potential that every county or that every similar property in the county is getting. In addition to that, if you look at the actual operating expenses, this has been a very stabilized property over the last 4 years. The county, in their initial analysis, was using 21.5% operating expense rate, reviewed the 24 financials and increased that slightly to 22%. This property has never operated below 23% in any of the last 4 years, 27.6% in 21, 23.5% in 22, 24% in 23, and then 23.16% in 2024. So I think baseline here, the lowest that this should be put at is 23%. It's been extraordinarily stable over the last 4 years. And as we've continued to talk about, costs continue to rise. The cost of supplies, the cost of maintenance, contracting costs are increasing. So I think the county's test column operating expenses of 22% is pretty low given the stable operations of the subject. With that, I'll leave the rest of my time to Jeremy.
Thanks. I'm Jeremy Chidlick. I haven't presented in front of the board in some time, and I work with Blake. This case, actually, when you break it down, it's pretty simple. Our test column matches column E, except for one thing. We use the 5% market vacancy that everybody gets, and we use the cap rate that the county derives that's based off of using that 5% market vacancy. What the county's done, Blake did a really good job of laying it out. But I think the key point is when they tested this, they saw that they had overshot the income. They just overshot it more in the test. This property has never done a 22% vacancy rate, expense rate. This property has never done income of 15,090,000. They saw that the income was 14.1, and then it then reported 14.7. So they said, you know what? We originally, it was 14.1 and they thought it'd be 15. They then learned it was actually 14.7. So they said, you know, let's make it 15.1. And then they overshot that. So they're using income that the property's never achieved. They're using vacancy efficiencies that the property's never achieved, and then learn that they overshot it. And the first thing they did when they overshot it is they then tested it to overshoot it more to increase this assessment by like 12%. When yes, the income is up, but the income is up much lower than much lower than they think it was going to be up, and then just assumed it should have gone up more. So again, our test is simply using the income in 2014, the expenses in 2014, and then the assessor's vacancy and cap rates that they give for everybody that they don't change. So to overshoot that income to then give you a higher vacancy to try to get to an effective gross income number and overshoot that figure, to then come back by overshoot it by $100,000, to then apply a rate much lower. This isn't Blake and Jeremy's apartment. This is Ditmar, who owns a ton of apartments in the county. They know exactly what they're doing. If they could be more efficient, they would. If they can get higher rents, they would. And then in the end, they cap it at the cap rate that's derived using the 5% market vacancy. So that's all I have. Can't believe I'm ending early. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Before questions, can I just ask Jeff if you can turn your camera off till your case comes up? Thank you. Okay, questions from board members?
Excuse me, I haven't presented yet.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize. Ms. Roskin for the county, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so basically, we presented a test here. And when I was looking at our summary page, I noted that from 2021 to 22, year over year, basically the revenue has been increasing. It increased 11%. It increased then 7%. And we're talking combined, the apartment and the retail. And for 2024, it was showing a 4% increase. Now, keep in mind that 2024, that's historical data, okay? When we're valuing these properties for January 1, we're projecting for January 2025, okay? And we don't have that information, so we made our best analysis off of the 2023 when we originally valued this. So now that we have the 2024, I looked at the rent roll, and as you can see, I did include a rent roll analysis for the apartments and for the retail. And basically, I looked at the historical data for the apartments and I projected the rent, okay? And I actually under projected compared to what they were showing consistently. And that's the result of the test columns. Yes, they are, their vacancy has improved, and it looks like it's stabilized at 2.3%. And our stabilized vacancy rate is 5%. So they've been, they got the additional, it brought our combined, the combined totals down to relatively about 150,000 more than the historical EGI. As you go down the line, we're looking at the expenses. We feel that our combined expenses are in line, and we also adjusted the PPT based on the documentation that the agent submitted to us. Overall, the test still came in at about roughly $1 million higher than the January 1 assessment. And open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now questions from board members. None? Okay, Ms. Ruskin, if you have any final comments in your minute?
Once again, just a reminder that the 2024 is historical data and that when we're valuing for January 21, we don't have that information. So we're having to look at the history and we're projecting forward. Now that we have that 2024 and the rent roll combined, we did a projection. We feel that's what the 2025 original January 1 assessment of 256,435,000 is a valid value. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Warren, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Mr. Lee, I'll close.
Okay.
If the income, we've seen many cases over the years where the income's gone 7 million, 6 million, 5 million, and we come to the assessor and they say, well, we looked at a 3-year average and we think 6 is a good number. Not, you wouldn't go 4 because you're future looking. In this case, the income was at the time of the assessment 14.1 and the assessor used 15. And she's saying, well, it's upward trending. What we hear every single time in the downward spiral is, well, you'll get that next year when that income's available, or let's look at a 3-year average. In this case, the assessor's saying, we've looked at the last 3 years and noticed a trend up. So we assumed it would go higher. And then we learned it did go higher, but not as high as we went. So now we're assuming it should have gone even higher. The fact that she thought it was 15, and now she's essentially using 15.1 after learning, in fact, it was 14.7, I think is indefensible. She's saying, well, we had to assume what it was. Well, we assumed what it was. I understand. I was an assessor. That job is very difficult. But what she has now is the 2024 income. She has the year-end 2024 income to value the property as of 1/1/2025.
Time's up.
In doing that, she's overshot the number by $350,000.
Okay, all right. Thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. Where are folks on this? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, I agree with the appellants that the expenses looked a little bit low. What I did, this is the only change I made. I averaged the last 3 years of expenses and it came out to about 25%. So with that, I bumped the expenses in the apartment column on the original assessment to 24 because the retail expenses will get them up to about 25% to be in line with the 3-year average. And I got a reduction to 248,592,800. We'll see if anyone agrees.
Okay. Okay. Other folks? Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I agree. I did the same. I didn't go out as far as 24. I went to 23% based on the previous years. And I came up, of course, a little bit higher than Mr. Mendez did, but pretty much because of the total of the amounts when you add up at 23% plus the retail expenses, it comes up, to almost 4.4 million, which is, in my opinion, more reasonable, but we might be somewhere in between.
Okay, so what was your number then, Mr. Penaranda?
At 23% expense on the original assessment on the apartments, I come up with a total value of 253,166,574.
Okay, so Mr. Yates or Mr. Hoffman?
I mean, I agree with, I was on board with Johnny's suggestion originally. I could probably go with it.
At the 24%.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Yates?
I would probably prefer to go with what Jose has. I mean, I looked at it and I was looking at comparing the numbers annually, and the NOI between 23 and 24 went up 587,000. The county's projection for 25 is only 260,000 more. The trend, and I was going with the trend, I know that's not what the appellant wants to hear, but I think 25 will probably hit what the county has.
Mhm.
But I would go with Jose's if we need to change it and not confirm it.
All right. Can the other two live with that?
Yeah, I can live with it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Penaranda?
I'll move that we reduce the assessment to 253,166,600 based on increasing the expenses to 23% on the apartment side on the original assessment.
All right,
Okay.
second.
A motion and a second by Mr. Hoffman. All in favor? Aye, opposed. Okay, so it is unanimous. The assessment's reduced to 253,166,600 based on increasing the expenses on the apartments to 23% off the original assessment. Thank you.
Ms. Dooley, can I have a point of clarification? Was the personal property removed in that calculation? The 1,436,000?
No, it was
then
not. I'm sorry.
that comes off below that.
The 1,478,515?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that without the personal property would be 251,729,800.
Right, but that would just come off. We don't have to vote on that.
No.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you got that, Ms. Roskin?
I'm sorry, that is a deduction, correct, Ms. Dooley? That, as you see on the column D and F, the personal
Right, but
property
that's-
number.
Right, it's a deduction that would just come off of the assessment. We don't have to change the motion. That's coming off of our number.
So the final number is 251,759,800.
251,729,800.
729,800.
120.
Okay,
Are you okay with that, Mr. Chitlick?
it's not up to me, right?
But
But
no,
no.
I'm asking you for the basic math. It's a yes or no.
Yeah, no, that's correct. It was just that wasn't the motion that was voted on. So I just want to make sure that the number that was voted on wasn't enrolled. It's actually the 251,729,800. I know I haven't been around in a little while, but historically you would vote on that final number, not the number less personal property.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
Yeah, that's
Thank you
correct.
very
Thanks for
much.
pointing it out.
Thank you.
God. Okay, we have Mr. Jeff Iannuzzi, and we're keeping Ms. Roskin.
Good morning.
Okay, and Mr. Warren, you're gonna turn your camera off now because you're finished.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next case on the agenda is RPC 3406716G, 3600 South Glebe Road. Mr. Iannuzzi, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about the property.
Thank you very much. The property consists of 6 parcels totaling over 82,000 square feet of retail space. These parcels are all retail condos on the ground floor and lower level of the apartment building above, but for the purposes of this, we are only speaking of the 6 parcels representing the retail space. The proposed assessment for the year cumulative for all parcels is $31,316,500. Our calculated and requested value is $20,566,500, again for all 6 parcels. The issue for this property, I would say call it 1.5 issues that are related to each other, are regarding the tenancy at the property. Looking forward as of January 1st, 2025. The Harris Teeter has limited time left on their lease, and they will be vacating the property at the end of their lease. The Harris Teeter location represents 48,000 square feet of the 82,000, representing 58% of the rentable area, and providing 34% of the rent to the property. Additionally, Innova, their space of about 9% of the rentable area went dark in the end of 2024, meaning they had physically vacated the space and were and they were on path to pushing for an early lease termination. Their lease was supposed to end in 2026. So in terms of the calculations of what we're doing differently as a result of these downward effects, we increased the vacancy specifically for the Harris Teeter space to 25%. The estimate that the owners have given us regarding that space is that they will need to spend millions of dollars to retrofit that space over 50,000 square feet. It's highly unlikely they'll be able to get a single tenant again. So converting that space to multi-tenanted will cost them millions of dollars. The estimate is at least $2 million, with free rent on top of that, leasing commissions on top of that. All to get they're expecting about $15 per square foot is a market rent if and when they're able to get a tenant in there. The Innova space, again, that's kind of it's not quite as drastic, given that they're not quite as drastic given the size difference, but they did vacate the property, again showing that this property is on a downward trajectory. Their space had been leased. They were paying over $53 per square foot. The owner, they've had brokers quoting other tenant brokers in the market at around $40 per square foot, with probably over $400,000 in tenant improvements and leasing commissions and free rent. So we're decreasing that. In the grand scheme of things, we're actually only changing the county's vacancy being used on the Harris Teeter space to get to a stabilized NOI, perhaps of around $2,268,000. Where this really affects the market and our calculations is the risk level of the risk and the potential costs of stabilizing the asset, and then of course the risk of what if you don't stabilize the asset. We have information that supports a 10% cap rate for distressed properties like this that have potentially a third of the income being wiped away in the future. And using that cap rate, we arrive at a value of $20,566,520. And the owners have gone to brokers in the market, asked them. They had been trying to sell this property for years with no takers because everybody is worried about the Harris Teeter space. They know that at the end of their lease, they have a bill of over $2 million that they will need to spend in order to restabilize the asset. That risk is not something that anyone in the market has yet offered to buy this property. They've had brokers' opinions of value. JLL starting on page 5 indicated a value of about $21.5 million. CBRE, both of these are from December of 2024. Please keep in mind ahead of the 1/1/25 valuation date. They're coming in at a value of around $19.6 million. And again, this is the blanket assumption is the risk level from the Harris Teeter vacancy makes this property undesirable for any investor in the market. We additionally looked at market surveys to try to deduce a cap rate that to honestly see how CBRE and JLL were arriving at their values close to $20 million. And we've seen in RERC surveys cap rates significantly higher than the county's numbers for distressed assets. We looked at a Class B investment property on page 42 of our packet, indicating a range for neighborhood commercial between 7.5% and 10%. We took the high end of this just because, again, this property has significant risk, 30% of the revenue dropping off a cliff at the end of the Harris Teeter lease. And as Jeremy said in the last case, we understand that the assessor job is incredibly difficult. They need to do everything standardized and in advance for a lot of things. But when there is this level of risk for a property, we can't just say, oh, this is the same as another stabilized, good quality retail asset. There needs to be some adjustments made to account for what the market is accounting for. And that is that there's revenue going away and that there's expenses in order to stabilize the asset in the future. And as a result, our value, the JLL and CBRE values are all coming in around the same, close to around 20 million. We're actually at 20,566,500. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Roskin for the county, please.
Thank you, board. Okay, with this particular property, January 1. So in the past, you know, it's been argued that, oh, the grocer is going to go away. However, they have a lease. They have a lease in place that said it expires in 2027. This is 2 years before then. Okay, January 1 is 2 years before that expiration date. You've heard also that they want to shut down, they meaning the corporate, whoever owns Harris Teeter, wants to shut down several grocery stores. And I closely watched that. This was not on that list. This particular grocer or location was not on the list when I valued this property. But I still looked at it and I go, okay, what are we, when I made my projection for the income, is very close to what's being reported for the 2023. And it's still under what is reported for the 2024. As you follow down the line, we get to the vacancy rate. Note that we're using 12% vacancy. They included some concessions, which came out to 4.6%. So that's substantially less. So once again, we did get the announcement this year in June. I think it was, I did find a news article in June that Harris Teeter has finally decided that they are going to leave. That's after January 1. Going forward, yes, we are definitely going to take that into consideration when we're valuing the property. But as of January 1, Harris Teeter still had not decided that they were going to leave. They were still going to be there for another 2 more years. Then when you go down to the expenses, yes, our original column is showing something a little less than what they reported for 2024. But when you look at the history, it's in line with what is being reported historically. And then when you get down to the very bottom line, the NOI, our January 1 NOI is still less than what is being reported for the 2024. The other thing I want to make note of is we do have another property in the county that is experiencing, that has experienced a similar situation. That's the Lion Village Shopping Center. If you recall, the Giant announced in March, which was after the January 1 assessment, announced in March that they were leaving. And so the next year, which was this year, 2025, the next year, I did take that into account and we heavily discounted the rent. But that was for the 2025, they had announced in, when they announced it was after the January 1 assessment in 2024. This way, and this particular property, we're going to treat it the same way. We're equalizing it. For January 1, we feel that it's the value is well supported. And then coming for this next year, 2026, now that we know that the grocer is leaving, we are definitely going to take that into consideration when we value this property, and we will equalize it with the other similar property, Lion Village. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, for the county, when you say you're going to take that into consideration for next year, what does that look like? Are you talking about, can you just give me an idea of what you're talking about? As far as like, is it a cap rate increase? Is it just?
So,
yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the rents. I'm going to take a look at what I did for Lion Village. At the moment, I can't remember exactly what I did for Lion Village, but I believe I did some drastic reduction in the rents, and they still got the stabilized vacancy. So it's, like I said, the stabilized vacancy is 12% that we used, and they're experiencing 4.6. So that will still reduce the rent.
Thanks.
Okay, any other question? Oh, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, for the appellant, I think I remember like the last couple of years getting kind of information on the sale process, and like there was never an offer above like 25 million. Is that the am I thinking, is this the same one? They've tried to sell this property before, right?
Yeah, it's been on the market. I don't know when. I don't recall when any, if and when any offers came in. Obviously, none were accepted. I believe they were closer into 2021 and 2022.
Yeah,
Which
it might have been a while ago. So
to the county's point, there was more uncertainty back then, and about this. There was more of a, well, what happens if this happens now, and I understand the official announcement went public this year, but the owners and the market as a whole have, generally speaking, known well before the valuation date that the Harris Teeter would be vacating.
yeah, I mean,
So
if the
the
opinion of
offers hadn't
value
come in those
was
years.
in
I'm sorry.
December of 24, and the assumption was that the Harris Teeter was vacating, there must have been some discussions or notices or something received before that, right?
I don't believe that the tenant would have been required to inform the owner. But of course, the owner is always reaching out to, and again, I'm talking in the past, in 2024, as of the
Yeah.
valuation date, talking to the tenant's brokers. Hey, are you renewing? Are you going to extend the lease? Options? Well, all of this, and that's the assumption that the owners made, and the market made, that the Harris Teeter would be vacating their space.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Ms. Roskin, if you take a minute to wrap up then.
Sure. One other thing I want to point out, if you look at the historical data, they're reporting actuals, and they're not reporting any vacancy. So take a look at, how our NOI compares compared to theirs. And once again, they're not including vacancy, and they're only reporting actuals. Our January 1 assessment is still less than what they're reporting for 2024. And once again, for the 2026, we're definitely taking into consideration, now that we've heard that Harris Teeter is leaving as of June, we will be taking that into consideration for the 2026. But as of January 1, Harris Teeter was still planning to be there. Their lease was still in place until 2027. They still had time to fill that space. As when I was valuing this for January 1, we feel that our January 1 assessment is conservative in comparison to the historical data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Iannuzzi, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Thank you. I disagree with the county's assertion that the Harris Teeter they didn't know they were leaving until June. That's a completely false statement. That we didn't. It was publicly released in June that they would be vacating the space. And at the end of the day, this just comes down to the risk rate. NOI, there is a minor change. This will decrease NOI moving forward with these tenants leaving. But the market as a whole, these brokers who get paid based on lower cap rates and higher values, on page 6, they say 11.2% cap rate. There's just so much risk with this property that is not being accounted for. So even if we use the assessor's NOI and say, okay, let's just stabilize at 12%, an upward adjustment on cap rate is necessary in order to fully capture the risk of this property.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. Mr. Hoffman.
I was initially thinking that JLL broker's opinion of value is probably accurate, at 21.5, but just given the timing of the notices and everything, issue I have with the assessment is it's gone up by $1 million. So it seems like you're sticking the knife in a little hard when we all kind of know that this property's in trouble, it's no better off than it was a year before, regardless of when the announcement was made. So I'm kind of like leaning towards, can we just hold it at the 2024 assessment? Can we just keep it at the 30,503,800 and then reassess next year based on a vacant, grocery shell? I'm up into kind of how everybody else is feeling on that.
Yeah, Mr. Mendez?
Yeah, initially I was thinking the same exact thing, but if you go back and you look at the NOI last year and you cap that out and you cap the actual NOI that was achieved in 2024, you get higher numbers. So I think I'm okay with the current assessment. There was a lot of they might, potentially a third of the income will be wiped away, assumptions from the owner, etc. And the lease expires in 2027. So it's not even next year. So I think I would personally stick with the current assessment.
Yeah, Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Mendez. I think, looking overall at all the numbers, I think, and like Ms. Raskin said, I think the NOI is very conservative compared to what it could have been. And I would agree with Mr. Hoffman if there was an increase, on the numbers, especially with the NOI. So I'm okay with the current assessment.
Yeah, I agree. Anything different, Mr. Yates?
No, I totally agree and looked at the same way Johnny did.
Okay, all right, Mr. Mendez?
Sure, I'll move that we confirm the county's 2025 assessment of 31,316,500.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, it is 4-1 without Mr. Hoffman. The county is confirmed at 31,316,500. Thank you. All right, and then do we have Mr. Gomez?
Yep.
Can you turn your camera on?
Yep.
Let's see.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I understand from that you both have agreed to present these together, correct? We'll have to obviously vote on them separately, but we'll allow for the joint presentation. So the first up is RPC 1701103A and 1704803G, both at 2001 Clarendon Boulevard. So Mr. Gomez, if you want to start with your 8 minutes, and if you need a few more minutes afterwards, we will certainly be lenient to that since you're doing both cases.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I'll just jump right into it. As you mentioned, we're looking at a total of 6 parcels here with a combined assessment for 2025 of $96,602,000. Our round opinion of value is at $80,279,000. The subject property is a 154 unit mid-rise apartment building that also offers 27,779 square feet of retail space, and it was originally built in 2013. We have provided in our packet 2 different approaches. So we have the apartment approach included on page 3, and we have the commercial approach, the retail approach included on page 4. And I'll kind of go through and just present the adjustments that we made to each individual approach accordingly. Most of the changes that we've made were made to the commercial approach based on the commercial rent roll or the retail rent roll that was provided by the client, and it is provided on page 6 of our submission. And as I go through and kind of speak on the changes, that's essentially where we're pulling all of our changes for the retail portion. We'll begin with the commercial rents. The current the county applies a commercial rent of $45 per square foot. We made an adjustment to $43.25 per that 12/31/2024 rent roll. That is for the occupied space, as seen on page 6 again. As we move on to the total parking income, the county is using a total parking income of $452,000, 273,000 of that is allocated to the apartment valuation, which is comprised of 60% or represents 60%. The total parking income per the calendar year 2024 property financials that were provided to the county was 255,000, and we attribute 154K of that, which is 60%, matching that 60% to our apartment pro forma, and then the remaining 101K or 40% to the retail pro forma. So that is one of the discrepancies on the apartment approach. We then apply the other income per the calendar year 2024 I&E submission for the apartment approach, and then we're pretty much the same. We match the county as far as the vacancy and collection ratio and the expense ratio for the remainder of the way for the apartment approach. We did note that the county also overestimated the retail other income at 45,500, and we adjusted that to reflect the 12/31/2024 rent roll in our retail approach, and then change the vacancy and collection ratio to 9%, again, based on that rent roll that was provided. Again, our main point of focus here in making those adjustments is just trying to get us close to the calendar year 2024 combined NOI for the property, which was about 5,280,000. Should be correct. Yeah, 5,280,126. The apartment, the retail income was left off of the actual calendar year 2024 I&E submission, but we have provided the internals, and those are also included within the packet. So that's where I'm deriving that number. And with our adjustments to both the income for the apartment approach and the retail approach, we're coming at a combined apartment and commercial NOI of 5,241,619. Again, right in line with what was actually achieved at the property, the total achieved at the property in calendar year 2024, and then just make a base cap rate adjustment based on our band of investment calculations, market surveys per CoStar, and investor surveys per PwC that are also included in the packet. And we come to a total apartment value of 63,185,000, then we add the commercial value of 17,094,400 to derive our final opinion of value. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ruskin, please.
Thank you, board. So this one was challenging. I tried to determine how I wanted to present this. Should I present them in separately or combine? And because the 2024 I&Es that were submitted, I had to combine these together, and that's why we're seeing this in one summary page. So to go back, and I understand he's not arguing point for apartment, but I'm just going to give a brief overview of the apartment. When you look at the apartment revenues, they have been steadily increasing for 2024, and the vacancy has been going down, and their vacancy is below our stabilized vacancy rate. And I did want to state that in their original apartment I&E, when they attached the operational statement to that I&E, when I first looked at it, I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I noted that they had included over 300,000 in capital expenditures, renovation to the property. And so that's why the reconstructed column shows up. It's taking out those over 300,000 in capital expenditures. This was still difficult to analyze because of that operating statement. In the operating statement, which is reconstructed, they included the retail rent, and that's actuals. So they didn't report a vacancy. And when you look at our original assessment, we're using a 4% stabilized vacancy rate for the apartment, and we're using 8% stabilized vacancy rate for the retail. And when you look at the reconstructed combined, they're only reporting 3%. Okay, so I took a look at that and I said, all right, no, I don't need to test this. And then when you go further down the line and you take a look at the expenses, the combined expenses that we use for January 1 far exceed what was being reported in the original apartment I&E and what was reconstructed in the 2024. So we feel that our January 1 assessment for both properties, both the apartment and for the retail, are very reasonable. And once again, I did reconstruct the excuse me. I did create a rent roll analysis for both the apartments and for both the retail. And so when I took a look at that, I looked at the retail and I ran some numbers and I go, there's no reason to test this. The January 1 is still well supported for both the apartment and once again, for the retail. He's suggesting that we're over projecting, but we're not, okay? When I look at this, turns out it's only 7% vacant as of January 1 for the retail. However, they did, and obviously that's not for, they did manage to fill that vacancy, but that's going to be considered for next year, okay? But when I looked at it, I go, okay, 7%, we're using 8%. So we're over on the vacancy rate for the retail. Just want to bring it back that when I looked at this, like I said, the I&Es were a little confusing because the one that they submitted was the apartment. They excluded the retail, but they attached an operating statement to that apartment I&E. And I started looking at that a little closer. It turns out those expenses that they reported on the apartment I&E, those are including expenses for the retail also. So what you should be looking at is column E2, the reconstruction, and comparing that to our original assessment. We feel that our original assessment is well supported. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? Mr. Hoffman?
I guess just one. I don't know if it's for the board or for the county, but are we doing this as two separate cases, or are we just talking? Because I have it as case 5 and case 6, or we're talking about the whole thing, and then we're going to vote on two.
Both, but we'll vote on them separately.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I don't have any other question.
Okay. Nothing else? No? All right, Ms. Roskin, if you take a minute to wrap up then.
Sure. Once again, like I said, this was a little confusing when I was analyzing the 2024 data. And after reviewing the information and the attached operating income their operating income statement, we felt that our January 1 assessment for both the apartment and for the retail are well supported. And keep in mind that they're reporting actuals on the retail. I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Gomez, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Yep, thank you. So again, just want to point out here that those capex expenses were not included in our calculation of our total property NOI of $5,280,000 that I mentioned earlier. So those calculations, if you look at page, just right below our income, the income that was provided for this year. Let's see if I can find the page really quickly. Apologies. Within our submission, that would be starting on page, sorry about that, on page 75 of our submission. The NOI that we utilized to try to get close to that $5,280,000 figure, we pretty much derived from the income less the interest income at the property, that again, that is including retail, and we take the total expenses and plus the real estate tax, and that's how we derive our NOI. If you look at page 78, that's where we see the capital expenditures for both the residential and the retail. Those were not included. So we felt that the NOI that we try to match, that 5.2 figure, was more than fair there. Again, there's some overstatements with the the retail income, which we felt were very, very reasonable to adjust, slight adjustment to $43.25. And there were some significant overstatements with other incomes as well as the parking income, especially with that $452,000 figure that we adjusted to $255K. Again, those are the totals, and I'm happy to provide the breakdown of those again. But we felt that the adjustments that we made were very fair in trying to get to that total NOI achieved at the property in 2024, and we made those and we attributed those to the apartments and the retail accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. For folks. Mr. Hoffman?
I mean, I think it's fair, just on the gross per square foot per unit. I don't want to see anything wrong with this building. I think Lori's done a good job kind of pulling it apart. Particularly the retail, it's like, it seems pretty solid, pretty stable. In Arlington, you might even see something trade for a lower cap rate than that, given the tenants in the building. And then on the apartments, it's like we've seen multiple trades kind of in that corridor for over 500,000 a unit for even older buildings. So I'm okay with the assessment.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
anything different, Mr. Mendez? Okay, all right, so we have to keep these separate. So on the first case, somebody like to make a motion then?
Yeah, the first is on the apartment valuation, I guess. And that's my motion would be to confirm the county at 77,595,500.
No, I think the number is incorrect on the first page. I think it's 76,363,500.
Oh, right, column D1. So it's 76,363,500. Based on the county's original assessment for the apartments.
Okay,
I'll second that.
a motion and a second by Mr. Penaranda, all in favor? Aye, opposed,
Aye.
okay, that's unanimous. RPC 1701103A is confirmed at 76,363,500. And then moving to RPC 1704803G. I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, on that one, I'll motion and make sure I get the right number here off the matrix. I would motion to confirm the county's original assessment for the retail property at 19,006,500.
I'll second that again.
Okay, motion and a second again by Mr. Penaranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, okay, that's unanimous. That too is confirmed at 19,006,500 even. Thank you both. Okay, that completes the agenda for today. The only other order of business that I have tomorrow, if anybody is still not reading cases until the night before, case number 4, RPC 14021-022 has asked to withdraw. So it's BOE number 288, if you want to make a note of that.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, then we will stand adjourned here at 9:54. Reconvene tomorrow, Wednesday, October 8th, in person for the board members at 9 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.